everyone, and welcome to our Q&A session. We've received some really interesting questions, and in this video we're going to try to answer them. We've also added the link to the survey to the video description, so if you have any more questions, please send them over. So our first question is, what is meant by negotiation of meaning in CLT, in communicative language teaching? So negotiation of meaning is a process that speakers have to go through when they speak to each other to reach an understanding of each other. So for example, they ask for clarification, they rephrase, they reformulate what they've just said, or they ask each other if what they think they've understood is right. And these are all strategies for negotiating meaning. And activities like information gap exercises, which are typical of communicative language teaching, favour negotiation of meaning. And negotiation is also important in acquisitional terms because it allows the learner to pay attention to their interlanguage and develop their interlanguage as a consequence. Our second question is, could it be possible to have some more examples of answers to the corcorso questions based, for example, on an author of English literature or on a grammar topic to be explained to second grade high school, or a lesson plan for a first grade high school? Now, as far as the literature is concerned, there's a short section in the extra sources unit in our course. But we're also working on a mini course just on teaching literature, and if you want to hear more about this, we'll talk about it at the end of the video. In terms of lesson plans on grammar, you can see one by going on our website and opening the resources page. So our third question is, which method should be the most effective in a distance learning lesson? Well, I think this is an excellent question, really. And the answer would depend on a number of factors, including, for example, how many students there are in the classroom, their age, their levels. But thinking about a typical secondary school class, I don't think there is one specific method among the ones that we've studied in this course that would apply as the best method. And I think it's also problematic to call a method the best for all the reasons which are outlined in Unit 8 of the course about challenging the very concept of teaching method. However, I do also think that if we do go back to teaching online, we can definitely use, for example, a flipped classroom approach, as long as the students know from the start what they're expected to accomplish. And I say this because I think if we bear in mind that our goal is to develop our students' language learning, language skills, so they'll need output, input, interaction, and we know that we can't really accomplish much of this remotely, then something will have to shift to the asynchronous modality. So students will have to do things at home by themselves, which requires a lot of autonomy, and students get easily bored as well. So I think in this scenario, it's important that they know what exactly is expected of them and how they're going to be assessed. And if this is the case, then my impression is that a very good tool for this would be e-portfolios. They could be used as an effective and a fair assessment tool. Overall, though, I think also that we can learn our lessons from historical teaching methods, for example, in terms of teaching communicatively. But essentially, we need to remember that all of these methods and approaches were devised with reference to a face-to-face classroom. And to answer the challenges of this new online classroom, we simply perhaps need to look at ad hoc theories and practices. One example of this would be connectivism, which has at least an initial answer for these challenges. I would also say we need to look specifically at how to combine online or blended learning with the needs which are specific to language learning. And we can do that, for example, by designing programs that follow the advice of the experts, which are summarized in Unit 12, Part 5 in our teaching methodology course. Question 4 is, how can teachers teach pronunciation? Can you propose a fun and practical activity to enhance pronunciation? So, first of all, there's a whole lesson plan on the concept of intelligibility on the website in the resources section, if you want to have a look at that. In terms of teaching pronunciation generally, once we know that there's a huge number of features of pronunciation to teach in English, we need to be selective. And one way to be selective would be to focus on the lingua franca core, and or to make notes on the most frequent pronunciation mistakes that our learners make and decide to tackle them briefly and systematically during class, a sort of focus on form approach, which is covered in Unit 5 of the course on TBLT. Personally, my favourite activity is the phone number sounds activity. Say that you're practicing, for example, the difference between the long E and the short I sound, so the difference between the words sheep and ship. You choose 5 minimal pairs, so pairs of words which sound exactly the same except for one sound, just like sheep and ship. You assign a number from 0 to 9 to each of these sounds. Then you put the students in pairs, student A and student B. Student A has to read out their phone number, or a fake phone number if you're worried about privacy, and the student has to say the corresponding words out loud. So student B has to note down the number, and then student A shows student B his number, but this time is in number form, and they look at what mistakes they made. And these might be mistakes in pronunciation or in listening, but all of this will give you an opportunity to address them and perhaps drill the pronunciation again as a class. Question 5 is, what is the difference between syllabus and curriculum? Now, syllabus and curriculum are sometimes used interchangeably in the literature. However, when they're used differently, the syllabus is described as the summary of the topics covered or units to be taught in a course, while the curriculum is broader. It's a broader concept, and it refers to the overall content taught in an educational system or a course. And so the syllabus varies from teacher to teacher, while the curriculum is the same generally for all teachers. And in Italy, we don't really have a centralized, strict curriculum on the national level, but we have broader guidelines for a curriculum. Question 6 refers to units 1 to 7. The question is, I would like to know if it is correct to say this, that teacher-centered approaches are grammar translation, the direct method, situational language teaching, and the audiolingual method, and that learner-centered approaches are communicative language teaching, task-based language teaching, dogma and CLIL. And what about total physical response and humanistic language teaching? Well, first of all, I think the distinction is correct. Regarding TPR and humanistic language teaching, they're also more on the teacher-centered side. However, we first need to remind ourselves of what we mean by these terms. So the more learners have responsibilities and autonomy and can negotiate the syllabus with the teacher, the more a method is learner-centered. So this is what learner-centered means. I would caution against maybe blanket statements that say that, for example, TPR is 100% always teacher-centered, because you can have a TPR class with learners actually leading the charge on what type of activities they do, so they take on more autonomy. You can still say that certain methods originate with learner-centeredness at their core, and so they lend themselves better to learner-centeredness and learner autonomy. And this would be the case, for example, with emergent methods like dogma or with TBLT, because they originated with learner-centeredness more at their core. Question 7 is about Unit 9. The student says, I read that we can put countries like China, Japan, Russia in the expanding circle of Kachru's model, but is it correct to put countries like Italy or Spain in that circle too? I mean, I wonder if we can put there all the countries where English is taught as a school subject, or if it's not enough and it needs to be regularly used in some fields. And the answer to this is yes, we can put countries where English is spoken as a foreign language or a lingua franca in the expanding circle. The boundaries between the 3 circles have been blurred, and the model has received criticisms as well. But yes, if we refer to Kachru's model, then yes, Italy would be a part of the expanding circle. And if we think about it, English is already a big part of life in our country. Just by way of example, it's used in industry, in business meetings, as a language of business. It's also increasingly present in our education system, where entire degree programs in universities are now delivered in English. Official documents in bureaucracy are also translated into English more and more often. So English overall has spread and is used in our country. Question 8 is, are there any video demos with multi-approach lessons, preferably recent ones? I can't really think of any of many of these videos outside of the ones that we already referenced in our course, but if you type ELT demo lesson and search this on Google and YouTube, you'll be able to find quite a few results. Our 9th and final question is, how about a unit on teaching literature? And there is a unit which includes some sources that you can look at on teaching literature, and it's the extra sources unit in our course. We're also working on a mini course on teaching literature. Now the school and academic year has started, so we're all teaching full time, but we are working on a number of different new things. The first is a series of free webinars given by experts that we're working on organizing at the minute. We're also about to start offering consultation service, which will include a conversation class plus feedback on a lesson plan with a Canadian partner of ours who we will be introducing very soon through our YouTube and Facebook channel. We're also working on 3 self-study courses, one on literature teaching, one on lesson planning, and one on social justice. And all of these things will be coming up in the next few weeks and months. And the self-study courses are going to be designed as mini courses, so shorter courses. And in the description of the video, we've also added a link to a survey that you can fill out and let us know which ones of these initiatives you're interested in. So thank you very much for listening.